Wednesday Addams. You are one with whom I have always identified, due to your darker tastes, your disdain for the quote normal, your unashamed expression of self. I too enjoy catching muggles off guard in my daily life, and would do so more often were I more confident. Perhaps your visage will pass on some wisdom on this dilemma. I hope my recreation is up to your standard. Let's do this.
She's a good helper, huh?
Real good. It took me a while to actually get all of the preliminary stuff done, just because I've been dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression and work and all kind of other stuff, but I'm finally getting to a better point mentally, and now we start actually sewing this together. You can see I've got pieces laid out. I realized in reading instructions, because I did not do that yet because I'm not good at doing things in a proper order, you are supposed to add the trim as you go, which makes sense now that I think about it, but for some reason I was thinking that the trim wrapped all the way around, so you added it after the bodice was completely together. Nope, you add it to each piece of the bodice before putting the pieces of the bodice together. They suggest lace for a trim, like stretchy lace. I got pleather because I wanted to challenge myself to work with something that I've never used before. I thought the pleather would look better, especially because my contrast fabric is already lace, so why do more lace? I don't own the right kinds of needles to sew with pleather, so I'm gonna get as far as I can, and then if not today, then tomorrow I am going to go buy some new needles for my machine. Day one of sewing is done. I did get the lace overlays sewn on, the interfacing attached, which I mentioned before, and I got the darts all sewn into the bodice. Oh, and the back yoke is attached to the back bodice now. So yeah, I've done pretty well so far. I'm gonna stop for the night. I'll press these in the morning. And also, instead of going to get needles and sewing the trim on, because it is so thin, I think it'll be better if there's no visible stitch line because it's pleather. So I found a bottle of liquid stitch in one of my drawers, so I'm going to use this, and then if anything seems like it's giving me an issue, I'll either go back over it with more liquid stitch, or I'll go back and stitch it just to be safe and say, screw it, you know?
Sorry, my audio cut out here for a second, but speaking of the trim,
it was wrapped around a card for who knows how long. So I've rigged up this setup where it's basically wrapped around my drying rack here. Here you can see it stretching across in the diagonal lines. And I've got it stretched around and then pinned, clipped with the clothespins at the ends here to stretch it out and hopefully get the creases from where it was folded out of it so it's much more smooth and it looks better.
Spoiler alert, it did not work.
I shall talk to you guys in the morning. sleeves are on. Bodice is done. I am in love with this pleather trim that is on here. I wish I could figure out a good way to get these creases out. I had stretched it out on that drying rack, as y'all saw, to get rid of those, but it didn't quite do it all the way, so there's still like creasing that's visible on it, and I don't know what else I can try that's not gonna mess up the pleather. These sleeves were kind of a nightmare, which is actually quite fitting for Wednesday Addams, spoopy character like we're doing. But hemming was the worst part because I pressed over the first 1/4 inch at my ironing board in the kitchen, and I walked back here to start stitching it, and it was already coming unfolded. So I did the best I could, just like refolding with my fingers as I went, and that was a nightmare. So then when I had to fold it over the second 1/8 of an inch, I was like, screw pressing it, because that's not going to help. I'll just fold it over and pin it. But then the pins wouldn't stay, and it still kept coming unfolded, and it's really uneven, and like it kind of bothers me. But at the same time, like, most people aren't gonna notice that, probably. Except I just showed the entire internet. Also had a bit of a snafu because of the way the black gauze acts. It ended up shifting a lot when I was cutting the pattern, and so the gauze front bodice ended up longer than the lining front bodice, so it's sort of pillowing out and puckering in a couple of spots. I'm hoping that when I attach the skirt, most of that excess will be caught in the seam allowance and will be pulled in so that it doesn't look quite as bad as it does now. Really, my big hurdles right now is I'm working with materials that I've never used before, and I'm having to learn as I go. But that was the point of this costume, was to test myself and get myself back into the swing of things with sewing and everything. But I really like it. I'm very happy so far, and tomorrow I get to start putting the skirt together. And there are a whopping 22 pieces to this skirt. Yay! This will be probably the most complex skirt I have ever put together. But I'm honestly really excited about it because it's going to be nice and full, and it's going to be gorgeous, and I love me a full skirt on a dress. And I shall see you all again tomorrow morning.